Hello everyone, my name is Hector Mendoza. In this video, I'm going to show you how to work with fonts. It appears as if the fonts are being used using Google Fonts. You can also import your own fonts. Depending upon the style, you can use things like light, italic, regular, italic, semi-bold, semi-bold italic, bold, bold italic, extra bold italic, and things of those kind of features. And those are each font has its own characteristics that you can use. You can place your fonts in the center, left, or right of the canvas that you created. You can space out your fonts, which is called kerning. You can change the color of the font either by using a solid color, a linear gradient, a radial gradient. You can create a border, and whenever you're creating a border, it goes from the center of the text itself, so you have to be careful. You can create a shadow, and that shadow can have a different kind of opacity, which is the transparency of it, on a background. You can change the XY coordinates of the shadow, and you can also blur the shadow. I'm also going to show you how to import your own fonts. And the last thing, when you're working with text, you can convert it into an outline, which makes it easy for you to do things like I'm not sure if you can do it on this, but in most graphic programs, if you create it into an outline, you can place graphics inside fonts if they're outlined. So let me start with the first part. Okay, I'm going to show you how to work with fonts. So let's say, okay, first of all, let me create a new page. Okay, so I'll start from the beginning. So we're going to create a new canvas or new page, and I'm just going to tell it to create. I'm not looking to change the sizes or anything. So first of all, two ways to place a text box in here. If you go on the left hand side, you see this thing that says text. If you click on it, you see this green line here. That means that your cursor's activated. So if I just left click, it places text in there, right? Now, if I was to grab some text, I'm going to control something I got in my other monitor, and I'm going to hit Control V inside that text box. You see what happens? So the text is still there. Then you would have to physically change the size of the, and you have to be careful when you're doing that, because you see how the fonts, everything changed. The font, the kerning, spacing, everything changed because the way that I did it. So I'm going to hit Control Z. Now, if I click here on the center anchor point and I click on the center one, then I can change it. So let's say that I wanted it like this, and then I wanted to change the size of it. As I drag, look, see, that changes the size of the font. So be real careful when you're doing that. Now, so let me delete this. I'm going to show you the other way to place a text box. So if I click, activate my my text tool, and I'm going to left click and drag while I'm holding the left click, right? So look, so you see where my pointer is? I'm going to left click, and now I'm dragging. Okay, and I can drag it any way I want. It's not changing the size of the font. It's just placing this text box where I want. Now, if I hit that same text, whatever size I have here, and when I hit Control V, it's going to put it in there. Okay, and it's going to also, whatever font I have here, is going to place it in here, because on my other place I had it was a different font. Okay, so that's how you are going to place text. Okay, now let me hit Control Z. Okay, so let's talk about fonts. If you can select one, or you can select the whole paragraph, right? If you click here, I'm gonna left click. Now I have a list of different typefaces. It appears that they're using the Google fonts. I'm not real sure, and I mean they might have their own fonts, but it looks like I'm assuming, since I'm using Google, that it's using Google fonts. But so here are several fonts that you can use. Now, you know, you can look for a font. Like if you click here and here, let me see. It always preloads with Open Sans, right? So I'm going to go to the front, and so I'm going to go in here and do a search for ABEL, okay? Because I saw that a while ago. So ABEL. You see, it has that font. Now, if I go in here and type Helvetica, see, no options. Let's say if I look for Times, there's no Times. And it has Open Sans. Once you type, as you type, it'll show you the fonts that it has. So that's how you change the different types of fonts. Okay, or you can click here and it gives you a preview of the font. So let's pick this one for right now. Now, what happens if you want to use a font you want to use? Or let's say you bought a bunch of fonts from an organization, and you wanted to use that. So let's say you want to use a TrueType font. Okay, so this is how you would take care of that. First of all, you would go into the web page that has the fonts, correct? So we're going to go in here, and this is a place where you have a few free fonts, but it appears I haven't used this program too much. Excuse me, this website. So I don't know if you start clicking here if they're gonna charge you for it. I just know that right here you say see free fonts. So I know this one's here for free. So let's. I've already downloaded this to my hard drive, but I'll go ahead and download this one. It looks like a newspaper font, right? So you would download. You see right in here, it placed it into a folder, which is the download folder. I tell it to show on folder. Now what I'm going to do is I am going to get that. Oops, give me a second here. I'm going to bring it into my desktop. That way I know where to find it. And I'm going to unzip it because it's zipped. So if I double click here, you don't have this program that I have. You will probably just, I'm just going to tell it to extract. Okay, so now I'm going to tell it to go to open folder, and these are the fonts that it loaded for me, right? So let me go ahead and grab those and stick it up here in this corner. Okay, now, so like I was explaining earlier, each font has its own characteristics. So this particular font, it has 1, 2, 3, 4 different kinds of uh, styles, right? So let's go back and go to the Vectr. Okay, so now we're going to import those fonts into Vectr, which is this free software. Okay, so if you click here, here's one of them that I uh, uh, downloaded yesterday. And I hit open. It places in here. Blaze has Blaze had been uploaded successfully. Let's go ahead and add the other ones. So I believe I can click on the first one, hit my control key. No, it won't let me. So I'm gonna double click on the first one. Then I'm gonna go in, add a couple of more. Let me see, I added that one. Let's add this one. Then let's add this one. And let's add that last one. Okay. So now it's going to add it there alphabetical order, right? So let me see what was the name of those things. Okay, so that's a weird name. So let me write this down. Okay, so now you have access to the fonts. So I can click here and go up and down and look for it, or I can just type the name of the word. So let's say BLAZ. That's one that I did yesterday. And this is what that font would look like. You wouldn't want to use it in regular text because that would be kind of hard to. It would probably be cool on a heading or something. So now let's go to the other one. And oops. So here it is right here. Oops. Here's one of them right here. Okay. So there's that font. So that's how you can use your own fonts. So let's go ahead and go into something different. So I created this earlier this morning, right before we started. That way I didn't skip nothing. So if you went in, and this is just regular text with no kerning. Kerning is spacing in between words. If I went in here and placed an outline, or which is a border around the text, this is what it would appear. So this one here is with 0.04 of an inch, because my document is set up in inches. If it was in points, then you could use 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, but it's 0.04 of an inch. You see where it says inch right there? Now, if you wanted to work with points, then it would be easier for you to write 4-point type, 3-point type, and so forth. But if you notice, the border is splitting in the center, halfway to the center and halfway outside. So you see how this one is 0.04? So what I did here on the next one, I went in and uh, copied and paste on top of the font, right? So, and let me show you how I did this right here. So I got this font, right? I'm gonna hit Control C, which is copy, or you can right click and hit copy. Now, while it is in the pasteboard, or it's in your loaded, let's say it's already copied. Okay, now I want to place it directly right on top of it. If I hit Shift V, which is paste on top, or I could see if you hit Control V, look what happens. I don't want to do that, right? So, but if I click on it and I hit Shift V, I just, well, it's because I had already Control C. That's not letting me do it. I think maybe I lost the command. Okay, so copy, Control C. If you right click, you see right here, oh, it's Control Shift V. Okay, so if I click here, it's Control Shift and V. I just placed it right on top of each other. So let me show you how we know that it worked. If I click on this and I change that to yellow. Now if I move this one, look, there's going to be a blue one on top. So we know that that copied it directly on top. Okay, so what I did from there, I went in and copy and paste it on top. On the first one, I didn't place no fill. Okay, so there are two layers, and let me show you. And I got a thing about layers already. So right now, if you click here, this shows you where those layers are. Now I can close that layer, turn it off, and you can see that layer in the back. Okay, so if I click here, then that's that layer. So let me put those two layers next to each other. Okay, so now on this layer, I went in and multiplied that fill by 2, because to get a 2-point type, you would have to put 4, because remember, we're going to place something right on top of it, and it's only going to use up half of that at the end. So because it's going into centers, right? So now if I hit Shift H to show everything, now you see that font right on top of what I duplicated and added on top. Now, most of y'all that are familiar with Adobe Illustrator, InDesign, then this would be easy for y'all. I hope I'm making sense. So now, whenever you're doing outlines, it is hard to read. You see how, now this is normal. I mean, if you look at this, at the first part, it looks normal, right? But as you start creating outlines, then they get harder to read because there's no spacing in between the characters. So whenever you start doing things like this, you want to put spaces in between the words. Because you see how hard it is to read this, especially if you're reading it like that. Okay? And if you read it like this, it's not that hard. So this is what I did. I'm going to do this top one, and that's going to look weird because remember, this are two sentences stacked on top of each other, but you'll see the difference. So this is going to be the good part about this. Now we're going to do, we're going to kern it, which is called, you know, putting space in between it. And this one here, I actually had already done that, because look, if I click here and I change it to what they normally put, it's like 2-point kerning, or actually that one won't look good, but so let's go here and let me change the kerning to 20. You see, that's what it does. It doesn't change the width of the text. It just places space in between each character. So that's what kerning is. And they're calling this space line spacing. Okay? Line spacing in typography is really something different, but this is what they're calling it here. Okay. So that explains about how to change the font size. Okay, so let's you can click on the font size like this. Let me delete that one out of the way. Okay, so sorry about that. So you can change it this way, or you can select that part and just put like that, 60 you know, I guess it's called 60-point type. Okay, so that's how you can change the size of the font. This is your kerning, or the spacing. And now let's talk about placing the text. Here, Control-0. Placing the text to the left, to the center, and to the right of the text box that you created. If you notice, when I click here, this is my text box. Right now, I have it centered. I'm going to center it to the left of that text box that I created. This is the center of it, and this is the right of it. Okay, so that is what this part is. Now, let's go ahead and hit it back to center. Now, let's talk about colors. So, you know, I can click on the box, and whatever color I change is going to change it. Okay, now if I go in here and say, well, you know what, all I want only this font to be red, it's not gonna let me. You're gonna have to go in there and create a different text box and place it on top of there. Okay, so and so let's say you wanted fonts to be a different color. You know, it can it's kind of hard, but you can do that. You would duplicate that right on top of there, and then you would center it. So basically what I would do, let's say if I wanted fonts to be a different color, I would go in here, and on the fill I would tell it none on that part, right? Well, first, yeah, I'll hit none. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to Control C, which is copy. I'm going to use Control Shift, and I'm going to put Shift Control N V for placing on top. This time I'm going to fill the color with, let's say, green. I'm going to go ahead and delete this other characters. Okay, I'm gonna go in here, hide this. H will hide it. Go in here and change the color to red. Now I have the word fonts in here. Remember, I can't change that word fonts to nothing because it'll turn everything to none. So I would have to go in here and just put spaces there, and then like a FONTS, and then Shift H is going to bring my oops, wrong command. Shift H will bring that other font, and then you just have to play with it until you get the desired, you know. Oops, wrong one. So you know, you just have to play with it, or you could just do it this way. So you could go in here and move it around this way, but you will still have to go in here and add more spaces for the let me hide that one. You know, you'd have to put more spaces. Shift H will bring everything back. You know, you would have to play with it like that. It's not like you can do what you can do with other programs, because I could have actually gone in there and only select a certain font and change it. But anyway, so let's keep on going. So that's what the kerning is, or line spacing. This is the fill. Now in your fills, you can do different kinds of fills. You can do linear. Well, first you can do a solid color, which is what we're using. You can do a linear gradient. So basically from left to right, it would start from a particular color and work its way to a different color. Or you can do a radial radial gradient, which would start from the center and work its way to the outermost part of the text. For instance, I got some of them right here. So if you notice, this here starts with white and it starts going into blue and ends in a solid blue. Here is a radial gradient. So from the center of it, it starts with a solid blue and works its way out to a gradient. So let me show you how that works. So we'll grab this guy. Right now solid, right? I'm going to go in here in the colors and change it to linear. That means from left to right or right to left. You click on it. So when you click on this little icon right here, you're going to see some pointers or some lines that'll let you change the color. So look, I'm going to click. Now you see this dot, and here, let me turn that off. Let me go in here and move this over to the left a little bit. Click on this. Click on the fill. I have a little dot here. I get a dot here, which would be like your middle tone or the middle part of the, you know, gradient, right? This thing moved on me. Okay, so, and at the end, it shows the other color, which is black. You see black, middle tones, highlights, or the white. So we're going to change those colors for you. So let's say that you wanted to go from white to blue. So let's use red. So if I click here, it shows you the color here. So let's say I wanted that to be red. You see, it changed it to red, right? Now let's say that I wanted to go from red to blue. If I click here and change that to blue, now you can see it went from red to blue. Okay. Now it looks weird because it has a red outline. So let's change that red into a green. Okay, so we click on Gradial, and this we're going to turn into green. Now it looks better because it kind of looked weird because it had a red outline with a red fill. Now you can see it goes from green, in the center of this is half green and half blue, and then it works its way into blue. So now let's do a radial. Okay, so if I click here, this is a radial fill. So if I click here, oops, excuse me, give me a second here. This, excuse me, this is the radial one. Okay, you see radial green. Again, if I wanted to change it, the color from here to here, from here to here, this is where I would change it. I would click here. You see this circle? It's an imaginary circle. So this font could be huge, right? From here all the way to here would be a gradient similar to the one you see here. So this would be like a 360. From here, as you go out, this is the lightest part of the radial. And then, so let's change this. Right now, I have it from red to white. Excuse me, blue to white, blue to white. Let's change it from green to white. Okay, so if I click here on this dot right here, I can change that to a green. And then, as you notice, it goes to white. Let's change the white into I don't want orange. So we're going to go from green to orange. And it's kind of hard to see because of the color red. So we'll use magenta. Nah, still green to orange. There's no good colors here. Let's go with white. Okay. So that's how you do a radial. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is your drop shadows. Okay, so now these are your drop shadows right here. You see right here, from here to here, there is a shadow. The way I created that shadow was duplicating fonts on top of each other. But you really don't have to. Let me see, I think I created this one. Let me see. You can go in there. So this one doesn't have nothing on. Well, yeah, there's duplicates. Never mind. Okay. So the font, the shadow is on my second layer. And the reason I had to use that second layer was so that my fonts look good when I created the outline. Let me go ahead and do one without any outline. So first we'll start with that. So I'm going to turn off the outline. I'm going to turn this into a red or a black. Yeah, red, because I'm going to do, yeah, I'm going to do green. It doesn't look good on the background. Okay, so I'm going to create a shadow. Now, when you're creating a shadow, you got to be careful, because if I click on a shadow, this is my shadow, right? To create a shadow, you're going to have to click on this little box that has the ability to turn off and turn on whatever you're working on. I don't care if it's a border, or I don't care if it's the font color. Okay, this is how you turn them off and on. So now that has a drop shadow of black. Now, if you notice, I don't know if y'all know what X and Y coordinates is. It's from the most left to the right will always be your X coordinate, or it could be a minus coordinate, which you would throw it to the left, where Y coordinates would go up and down. So, and this will be easier to demonstrate by actually showing you. Right now, it has an X coordinate, which would be to the right of 0.06 of an inch. I'm going to change it to a 2, and you're going to see the black actually go to the left. So let's hit 2. You see it moved to the left, and we're going to change the Y coordinates to 2. Okay, now that gives you a different look, right? By default, it's going to have its own calculation depending upon the size of the font and kerning that you're using. It thinks it should use whatever it uses. Okay, so let's go ahead and go back. Let's use 4. I think 4 would look better. 6 was way too much. Okay, that's what a shadow would look like. Now, let's say that you wanted to blur that. You see right here? Looks like a real shadow, right? And to do that, you would blur that black. Okay? So let's go ahead and blur that black. If I click here, don't freak out. If you click on this up arrow, look, everything looks, you can't see nothing, right? It's because you told it 1 inch. Remember, right now this this coordinates and how much you're telling it is based on an inch basis. So let's go with 0.02. We'll start from there. If you notice, it's starting to blur a little bit. That's not enough. And remember, if you click here, look what happens. It completely disappears. So make sure. So let's go to 0.08. Now that looks better. You see? So that is how you create your outlines. You can, and let's increase to make it look more 3D. You can change this into a 5 and change this one into a 5. That's how you create an outline, a shadow. Now let's talk about opacity. And opacity is not just opacity, it is the transparency of a font. Because depending upon what's on the background of the font, let me delete the first one. Okay, so if I go in here and I change the opacity of it to let's say, give me a second here. I'm having a brain fart. Give me a second. Opacity with high. There's a way to change the opacity of it. I know I could do it here by moving the. You see right here? Let's say change it to 50%. It looks like that because there's yellow. Red is normally 100% magenta, 100% magenta, and 100% yellow. So that's what it looks like, why it looks like that. Now if I win here, now I can't change this right here because it's locked, so I have to unlock that channel. Now I can select it, change that to a different color, and you see how the color change, because now it's taking part of the blue, mixing it with the color that I have here, which is red. So when you're working with with your colors, that's something you have to be aware of. But we're not here to teach um, photography right now. So let me see what else I have here. Okay, another thing about fonts. Fonts, especially in this program. Now, Adobe Illustrator, it's a little bit different. It can simulate things like light, regular, semi-bold, bold, extra bold, bold italic. In this particular program, whatever the font has in its, however it was created, is how you're going to be able to use it. Like for instance, I'm going to pick a font. Let me go to the top and just pick the first font. Let's say this font. This font itself has only regular. That's all it has. You can't make it bold. You can't make it italic. You can't make it bold italic. So don't freak out if you're like, oh, I thought this thing could do that. Well, it can if you use the right font. So we'll go and click a different font. Now look at this one. This one has regular, medium, semi-bold, bold, italic, medium italic, semi-bold italic, and bold italic. Some of them might have outline. Some of them might have other characteristics that you don't see here. So that's something also to keep in mind when you're selecting a font. It has to have the different kinds of fonts. Let me look at all of this and see if there's something that I need to go over. Okay, so you can also, so if I select a font and let's say that I wanted to flip it horizontally, look, if I click here, see how I flipped it horizontally? If I wanted to turn it upside down, I could flip it vertical. Okay. Then of course this is sending to the back. Like if I click here and I send it to the back, I would do that. If I wanted to send it to the front, I would click there. And let me see, I think this one would probably be better to demonstrate. Send to the back, you see? And then I would have to click this one and send that one to the back to get it back. But let me look at my notes, see anything else that transparency, blur, shadows. Well, I guess that's about all, guys. You can play around with this. I'll learn what I'm teaching you just by playing around with it. So hey guys, if you like my video, give me a thumbs up. Hopefully you'll become a subscriber, and if you do, I do appreciate it. That helps me with my advertisers. Again, thank you for watching my videos.